So I've had the Pixel 9 Pro XL for about a week, and it's simply the best Pixel ever. It has arguably their best design, and it's the first Pixel series, and that includes the 9 and the 9 Pro, that matches the build quality of its counterparts, or I should say its competitors such as the iPhone and the Samsung S series. But today I want to focus on the major changes that they've made to the hardware in a year, or I should say in a release where you thought all that you were going to do is basically a repeat of last year with a couple of minor changes. But no, what they did was they provided a new build quality upgrade and also a new design, leveraging off of what they did back with the initial 6 series where they came out with this camera visor. So we still have the uniqueness of the Pixel, but we also have enough to separate it from previous Pixels. So the first thing that I want to talk about is this. Google introduced for the first time an ultrasonic fingerprint reader. Now, the reason why this is significant is this. Google always had a fingerprint sensor on the back of their devices, and it was very easy to use, and it was extremely good hardware sensor. Now they switched to an optical sensor, and a lot of people did not like that switch. I rated Vivo's Ultrasonic for 10 out of 10 with OnePlus/Oppo's optical sensor. Then I rated Samsung's Ultrasonic a 9. And the reason why I rated it at a 9, and this is the same one that is used in the Google series, is for people like me that have big hands, the landing pad is kind of small. So I can make it work every single time, but I have to kind of look and know. Whereas with OnePlus or Vivo's implementation, I don't have to do that. So I always rated the Pixel series or the Pixel series before the 9 as an 8. Because sometimes, like when there's low light, you'd have some issues, and of course it wasn't as good as the other ones. Although for me, because my hand size, I didn't have a problem with the ultrasonic here or Google's. Another thing that's changed is this is the first Pixel that has slightly fast charging. The reason why I say slightly fast, this phone can go 0 to 70% in 30 minutes. That is plenty fast for me. Now, obviously, I'd want it much faster because I want it to match the Chinese OEMs and also the OnePlus series that is offered over here. Now, that's all I expected to happen. If you compare the Pixel to just any random iPhone, you're probably gonna get the same performance. However, there's always something up Apple's sleeve. So like whenever I tell people that are into Apple to buy an Apple, like to give you an example, last year, I bought my wife a 15 Plus. The reason being is I always go by battery life. So this year, the one to buy is the 16 Pro Max. This is the first one, even though it has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, not much has changed from last year. The efficiency of the G4 processor has made this different for me. My experience with Pixels has always been when I get into the car, I always plug it in. So let's say for instance I have an hour drive, this is gonna be plugged in, as opposed to now I don't plug my Pixel in unless I didn't charge it before I left. There's no need. The battery is that efficient. I'm seeing better times in standby. I'm seeing better times in just normal tasks that I always use. So like GPS in the car, I always have music playing, or sometimes I'll have YouTube listening to a podcast. So that's video playback. And then finally, that carried over to some of the benchmarks. So I don't really look at synthetic benchmark. To give you an example, if you were following Google on X right before they released, there was a leaked benchmark and there was a lot of people on Twitter that kept putting out the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro. And they're like, man, Google has the same benchmarks as the iPhone 12 Pro. And one of the things that to me was simply hilarious was that they picked the iPhone 12 Pro, was the fact that if you really research the iPhone 12 Pro, this is the same phone that the Verizon CEO was on stage with Tim Cook, and it was the introduction of 5G, 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 and then a couple of months later, the Verizon CEO has said, turn 5G off because the battery life was so poor. Now, that's not the reason why I brought up the benchmark. The reason why I brought up the benchmark, you can look at just straight Google searches and go to what people have said. Out of any phone that Apple has done, the biggest phone that they've had an issue with, Mr. Benchmark, is this, the iPhone 12 Pro, the iPhone 12 series. There are people that used to only use iPhones for gaming. So there's some people that would have the iPhone 11 or what have you. And there's a lot of people on the internet, and this is not me looking this up now. I've always known about it. That's what's so funny is people that are so into benchmarks, you would think they would know this. But when people upgraded from the iPhone 11 that were serious about gaming, notice that it was the worst iPhone ever when it came to gaming. Gaming that they never had issues with, lag on the iPhone 12 Pro as opposed to the iPhone 11, the iPhone 13. And what was even more hilarious is the fact that the reason why it gained so much traction is because a lot of times people upgrade even though they are into a certain thing. But when you get a phone, you might be out of the return period before you test something out because you're busy with life. And there's a lot of people outside of the return period that are like, dude, I saved up money and this is a trash device when it comes to gaming. So I'm happy to report that this is not a gaming phone. However, if you're into games and you want to play something like Call of Duty Mobile, I was getting easily 120 frames per second. Easily. When it comes to games like Genshin Impact, which literally cripples most phones, but now most phones can handle it. With the Google Pixel, you probably will see spikes, but I would say after about 15 minutes, it's going to settle in at 40 frames per second. Now, one of the things that I will note is that Call of Duty Warzone, I was seeing about 40 to 50 frames per second, but I did notice even with the vapor chamber that the phone was heating up. Now, I do know this is not a thing that just affects Tensor. That's just part of Call of Duty Warzone. That's kind of the reason why I use those three for my testing. Now also, as far as like video editing, I did a lot of that, and I'm gonna be doing some follow-up videos that kind of show a lot of the stuff that I did as far as like converting audio, again, video, rendering, and doing things like short videos, or even if you want to do long videos, there is no issue with this device. The Google Pixel 9 series, I thought was going to be a placeholder for the 10 series. And I'm happy to say that I was shocked. This is the best Pixel that has ever been made. It is the best hardware. It is the best build. It actually has the best camera hardware. Now, it's up to Google to optimize that hardware. That's going to take some time. But having said all that, as a Pixel person, as someone that's in the Pixel, as someone that buys multiple Pixels every year, I'm completely satisfied with this purchase. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. There's going to be a lot more videos on the Pixel. I'm truly excited about it. I love Pixel, and I understand that not everybody else does. YouTube is probably recommending a video, so click here, 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 here. And with that, we're out.